So
Mm-hmm.
Jotform is at its core a form building tool. You can create any form you need. And you mentioned templates, Gordon. We have over 10,000 templates available, many of which are specifically for counseling or therapy or medical industry.
This episode is sponsored by Therapy Notes, therapynotes.com. Be sure and check them out, and be sure and use the promo code Gordon, Gordon, and you can try them out for 2 months for free. Over 15 years ago, when I started my private practice, I had to learn a lot, and most of it the hard way, and I don't think you need to do the same. Hi, I'm Gordon Brewer, a licensed psychotherapist, and welcome to the Practice of Therapy podcast, part of the Psychcraft network of podcasts. Join me in this journey of discovery as we have conversations with other leaders and professionals in both the mental and allied health fields. Join us as we explore both the business and clinical sides of running a private practice. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. I'm Gordon Brewer, and this is episode number 308 of the Practice of Therapy podcast. And I'm glad you're with me on this journey. And if this is your first time listening to the podcast, welcome. And if you're coming back for more, glad you are, and hope you'll take time to follow us or subscribe to the podcast wherever you might listen to it. Looking forward to you hearing from my guest today, Morgan Zionz. And Morgan is with a company called Jotform. And if you're not familiar with Jotform, well, we're going to do a deep dive into it in this particular episode. You know, I ran across that platform a few years ago, and it was really in the context of the work I was doing at the time of just teaching people about using Google Workspace. And I've got a course out there called Google Workspace for Therapists. It does need updating, but it's still there, and it's still most of the content in it is very relevant. Google is constantly changing the way they do things and what their platform looks like, but the content in that particular course is relevant. It's just it's been a little while since I updated it, but anyway, it's there. And we'll have links here in the show notes for you to find out more about that. But anyway, when I was working on doing some research for that particular course and getting things together, I started hearing more and more about Jotform and how people were using that platform to integrate with Google Workspace, but also just the richness of what it does. And Jotform is a platform that allows you to create customizable online forms. And also one particular feature that a lot of people really like is it gives you the ability to send forms that people can sign electronically, and also it can be set up to be HIPAA secure. So it's got all the bells and whistles that we need for private practice. So we're going to be talking about that in this particular episode. And also, if you are interested in finding out more about Jotform or just looking at the platform and trying it out, you can go over to practiceoftherapy.com/Jotform, and that'll take you there. That full disclosure and being transparent, that is an affiliate link. So if you use that link and decide to sign up or subscribe to that service, I do get a commission for that, but I just want to be transparent about that. But anyway, it is a product that I can truly get behind and feel like it does all that they say it can do. I've been using it in my practice some, and particularly I use it within the Practice of Therapy and the Psychcraft network for most all of my forms there. So anyway, looking forward to you hearing my conversation with Morgan about all of that. But before we get to that, I'd love for you to hear more from our sponsor of the podcast, Therapy Notes, along with one of the members of the Psychcraft network.
Hey there, I'm Chris McDonald, and if you don't know me yet, I'm host of the Holistic Counseling Podcast, which is for therapists who want to deepen their knowledge of holistic modalities and build their practice with confidence. The Holistic Counseling Podcast is proudly part of the Sightcraft Podcast Network, a network of podcasts focused on helping people live more meaningful and productive lives. Join me each week as we explore the best practices for integrating holistic approaches into therapy and delve into the many benefits. Whether you're looking for new techniques or seeking to deepen your own personal journey towards wellness, this podcast is the perfect companion for your holistic path. If you haven't listened yet, you can find it over at holisticcounselingpodcast.com and discover other resources, including products, books, and other trainings to help support you in your holistic journey.
Have you ever wished your private practice could run as smoothly as a well-oiled machine? Well, look no further because Therapy Notes is here to revolutionize your practice. Therapy Notes is the complete practice management system you've been dreaming of. With everything you need to manage patient records, schedule appointments, meet with clients remotely, create rich documentation, and handle insurance billing, it's your secret weapon for a smoother practice. And the best part? It's accessible wherever and whenever you need it. Yep, even on the go. Imagine having more time for what truly matters, your clients. It's like having an extra set of hands, but digital. And here's the kicker. It's the very EHR Gordon relies on in his own practice. So, you know it's the real deal. Say goodbye to paperwork nightmares and hello to more time and better quality care. Check out Therapy Notes today at practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes. Oh, and don't forget to use the promo code GORDON to get 2 months free. That's practiceoftherapy.com/therapynotes with the promo code GORDON. Enjoy the show.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome again to the podcast. And I'm looking forward to you hearing my conversation with Morgan Zionz. Hi, Morgan. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, Gordon. Good morning. Good afternoon.
Yes. I'm glad we're getting to finally get to this. I know both of us with our busy schedules, just trying to get all the dots to connect is always in fun thing. But Morgan, as I start with everyone, why don't you tell folks a little bit about yourself and how you've landed where you've landed?
Sure. Yeah. So as I mentioned, I'm the product education manager at Jotform, which means I help people understand not just how to use the platform, but best practices and how to really make the most of it. There's a lot of features people don't know about. I actually majored in psychology, so I have a little bit of familiarity with what you do as a profession. I did not go into that, but I've always really liked helping people. And so for the past 15-ish years, I've been working in a similar capacity at other companies, helping customers get the most of a product, helping make sure they really understand everything that's available to them. So I've been at Jotform for almost 3 years, and that's how I landed here.
Right. And how I learned about Jotform was that I know one of the things that I put together that's still available is just using Google Workspace in private practice and to put a little course together on that. But one of the things that kept coming up in my conversations with people is using Jotform, particularly because the templates and the ability to integrate with Google Workspace and just it does a whole lot more than you can do with just Google Workspace by itself. But for folks that might not be familiar with Jotform, why don't you tell them about it, Morgan?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great starting point. So Jotform is at its core a form building tool. You can create any form you need. And you mentioned templates, Gordon. We have over 10,000 templates available, many of which are specifically for counseling or therapy or medical industry. So people don't have to start from scratch. But in addition to being a form builder, it's really a workflow management tool. So you can build approval flows into your forms. You get access to obviously you get access to all of the data, but the data is really accessible and easily accessible to you in a number of ways that you can turn into reports in a matter of seconds. We have a signature feature, an e-sign, Jotform sign feature that you can use for e-sign needs. And again, it's a really versatile tool. There is a lot involved in it and a lot to it. And really, Yeah, I don't know how to wrap that up, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's a really, really useful tool for a lot of people.
Yes, and I've been using it in my practice for a while, and also with the practice of therapy. And what I love about it is to be able to have that e-sign feature. And I know that's one of the things that comes up. I know just in talking with people like in the Google Workspace community that we've got on Facebook and just other conversations, people trying to figure out how to do forms with people remotely, particularly now that we're in an era kind of post COVID where we're still doing a lot of telehealth,
Yeah.
and there are a lot of therapists that are seeing clients, outside their geographic area and that kind of thing. So, yeah, so you want to maybe tell folks a little bit about how people are using the different forms and just let's dive into that.
Yeah, for sure. And absolutely, I think we have seen from COVID forward, we have seen the number of people using Jotform increase like exponentially over time. So absolutely, there's even more of a need than ever for things to be online. As I mentioned, there are a lot of different ways people can use Jotform and different tools. But as far as some of the things that might be useful in a therapy practice, I know patient intake forms, billing you can manage with Jotform. We have integrations with over 130 other platforms. And I think about 30 of those are payment platforms. So if you need to do any billing, what else? Any, not just patient intake, but informed consent forms, evaluations, early stage initial assessments, periodic assessments, even feedback for the therapist themselves. These are just some of the forms that, therapy practices, counseling practices are using. But again, in addition to that, you can send those through workflows. You can share those with other people on your team as needed within HIPAA guidelines, of course. But, again, the forms, those examples are just some of the starting points.
Yeah, and what's neat, I think, is that there are a lot of templates that you can use to start from. And one feature that I really like, and you might want to say more about this, is taking a PDF that you have and converting it into a form. Yeah, talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. We have a number of different ways you can use PDFs, but one of those is to take a PDF document. So when you are starting a form, you might have any number of starting points. So you can use a template. You can start from scratch. It's likely that if you're coming to Jotform anew, you have your form somewhere already. You have them as a PDF. Or you have them saved elsewhere. So you can upload PDFs and have that converted into a fillable PDF that people can then use, or transition that into a form. Just depends on what sort of document you want there. But that is a really, really neat feature. It works, really automatically just to convert what you already have into something that you can then transition online and have seamlessly sent out to people. Keep track of all of the responses, give them a record of responses and whatever else you need to do with it.
Right. You mentioned the workflow. Tell us more about that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about Jotform. There are a lot of things I love about Jotform, but approval flows they're not super new, but it's something we've had for about 2 years. And it allows you to build a workflow directly into a form. So you can use your form as a starting point and then send it through any level of approvals from there. So one example of that might be, you have a patient requesting an appointment with you. So the appointment request might be the starting point. You can then go and say, okay, I don't think this person is a good fit for me. We're going to, send them to a colleague who might be a better fit. Or I do want to bring this person on. I do want to have, do these sessions with them. From there, you can then send them like the patient intake, automatically through an email. So you just click a button saying, yes, I approve. Next step is that they get the next email with the intake, with the informed consent, with whatever that initial paperwork is that you need them to sign. Once that's all done, you're ready to go. You set up that appointment with them. You can have any number of steps in that workflow, but it really, really helps automate everything that you're doing. And I'm sure, again, my work is a little bit different from yours, but I'm sure that is valuable to all of us, obviously. So especially if you have a private practice or a smaller organization, that can be really, really useful to save you the time of having to do that manually and having to keep track of everything. It's all right there built into the system.
Yeah, I think what I think about people that maybe are getting started in like a solo practice, one of the most time consuming things for any practice really, unless you've got like a virtual assistant or something that's helping with that, is just doing that whole intake process.
Yeah.
And I can kind of conceptualize setting up the Jot forms so that you send people a link and it just walks them through the whole intake process so that when they
Yep.
come to your office or you meet with them online, you've got everything there in front of you and everything is done. And you don't have to waste a lot of time doing, intake paperwork and onboarding and all of that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I, as a patient of many different places, have had to fill out that paperwork over and over again. So it's really time consuming for the patient too, or the client, or whomever it is that any organization is working with. So any way you can automate that on your end and theirs is just going to make things a lot easier. One other feature I want to mention that I do think would be a great option for something like you just described, like a new private practice, a single person, a single therapist working alone, is our apps feature, where you can build an app really in a matter of minutes. It's all drag and drop.
Wow.
You don't need to know any coding. It's super easy to use. I'm not super tech savvy, and I've found it extremely intuitive from the get-go. And with apps, you can create this app that you can share with people that has links to multiple forms. So you can say, fill out all of the paperwork on here. You have the patient intake, you have an initial assessment, you have your informed consent, all in one single place. And so it's really easy just to share that with somebody, make sure they get everything filled out. You can easily check to make sure they've done it before they meet with you. And again, that makes it easier for them too, to make sure that they're filling out everything they need before they see you.
Right. Yeah. And then I know there are probably several different ways to store that information. And just, I know one thing that is of concern to people is just making sure it's HIPAA compliant or HIPAA secure. You want to say some things about that? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So we do offer HIPAA security. So with Jotform, there are many levels of accounts you can have. There is a free account if anybody's listening to this and is really interested and wants to sign up. I think we'll talk more about that at the end. But with our gold and our enterprise plans, we have HIPAA compliance. And a lot of our people in the medical space obviously are at that level where they do need a gold or enterprise level account anyway. But that's a HIPAA compliant server. It's a separate server for your data. We have a ton of information on our website about security in general that I would be more than happy to follow up with people about. But absolutely, HIPAA security is something that we offer.
Yeah. That's good. That's good for people to know. And the other thing too is just the electronic signature capabilities, because I know that question comes up a lot for people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure in the practice of therapy that is something that's very important. With Jotform, you can do signatures in one of two ways. So you can either build a form that has a signature field, or you can create more like a PDF that has fillable fields and then a signature at the bottom. And either of those are, it's included, everything's included with whatever license you have. So at your gold and enterprise level would be HIPAA compliant. All of it gets stored safely and securely, and you have access to everything you need.
Right. So I know one question that probably people will have is that they get started with Jotforms. How do they learn how to use the platform? Are there tutorials and trainings and that sort of thing available?
Yeah. Well, I manage our webinars. So that is one thing that just, personally, I'd like to plug. So every time we have a new release, we have a webinar about that. You can find our webinars on our YouTube channel or on our website. Just look for, Jotform YouTube, or look on the website for Jotform webinars, either way. In addition to webinars, which are a little bit longer, generally speaking, we have, I couldn't even tell you, countless numbers of shorter tutorials. You'll also find those on our YouTube channel. So those are more like 3 to 5 minute tutorials of multiple different features, very focused on that feature. We have 24/7 online support. So if you ever have any questions, Jotform support is available for you online. They usually get back within about 2 hours. And of course, we have user guides and everything that would all be on our website. But my favorites, of course, are the video resources that you can find on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, that's a good way to do that. And I'm sure too, there are people out there that would help you in setting things up for somebody that says, I don't want to spend the time setting all that up. I just want somebody to fix it for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Those people are out there. You can find them on any, like, not TaskRabbit, but other sites like that. Or I see sometimes on our Facebook channel, people drop a question in there and another user will respond or offer to help. So there are a lot of resources out there for help getting started too.
Yeah, I think they're one, not that I'm plugging them or anything, but like Upwork and Fiverr are good places to look for people that have experience with doing stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, So Morgan, what are some other things you would want people to know about Jotform and why it's a good tool to consider?
I think overall, I really want to hammer across the point of automating anything you're doing and automating, the things that you have to send out, the things that you have to follow up on. I think I've talked about most of that, generally speaking, but the templates can help you get started without having to start from scratch yourself. You can customize any of those by adding in your logo or making the colors, whatever colors you want, whatever design you need for your site. So, there is customization there, even if you're getting started with a template. Apps is, again, another thing that I think would be really useful for therapy practices to be able to share all of those things that you need upfront in one space. Approval workflows, again, is tracking all of those responses, tracking your entire flow, pushing you through a workflow without you having to do much of anything, really. And I think one thing I haven't talked about is access to the data that you're getting from these submissions, from what people are submitting.
Yes.
So that was probably a good next step. So there are number of ways that you have access to data. You have a table for each form you send where all of the data, any patient information is collected in one place. So from there, you can easily create reports. You can say, okay, here's our new patient intake, build a report of how many new people we took in this quarter, this year, whatever, how much are we billing, whatever you're including there. You can easily look at tables to make sure any signatures are in place. So that gets included in tables as well. So you see something where, when you look at one line and you see, oh, this patient didn't sign something, or this patient didn't complete this paperwork, that's super easy to see in tables. And then on an individual basis, you can get a PDF of any responses. So that, I think, especially with informed consent, you probably something you want to share with the patient themselves as well. So that PDF you can also customize and design, add your logos, whatever you need. And you can have this really nice, clean, professional PDF that you share with patients, you keep on file. And again, that's all drag and drop to build it. There's no coding needed. There's, it's all, everything within the system kind of functions the same way. It's really, really easy to use. So I think just the way that Jotform can save people time and has been saving people time is really, really, I think, the key of the core of what we do and the core of why we love doing what we're doing.
Right. Yeah, it really is a great tool, and it's very rich and has a lot of, as I like to say, bells and whistles and things that you can use and that sort of thing. So, so what would you say if people are interested in maybe just checking it out? I know you mentioned earlier you've got a free account. You want to say tell more about all that?
Yeah, absolutely. So anybody can sign up for a free account. There's no limit on that. It's not a trial. You can sign up, use it, see what you like. Obviously, with a free account, the features aren't limited. The features are available regardless. Again, that HIPAA compliance won't kick in until paid accounts, but the other features that I've mentioned, the apps, the approvals, tables, all of that is within the system regardless of what plan you're but you can start with a free plan, and it does limit like the number of forms you can create and the number of responses that you can receive. But you can start at any time with a free plan just by going to jotform.com. Again, I really recommend it. And I'd also be happy to talk to anybody who has any questions personally. So is a really, I always feel like the best way to get started is to just start playing around with something and see what you can do with it.
Yeah, right. That's great. And we'll have links in the show notes and the show summary. And I'll mention here is that because I am a believer in this, I'm an affiliate for Jotform, and we've got a link set up for that, or practiceoftherapy.com/Jotform. Jotform, and it is an affiliate link. So just full disclaimer around that, full disclosure. But yeah, we'll have all of that in the show notes and the show summary. So Morgan, any other parting thoughts before we close out here?
Yeah, I think one thing I always try to remind people when I'm giving this much of a spiel is that I'm not a salesperson. I'm a marketing person, but my job is to help people understand how to use Jotform and how to make the most of it. If it's not for you, it's not for you. But if it is for you, again, I would be happy to help you get started, help you find whatever resources you need. I'm not a support person per se, but I do know a lot about the system. So I guess I'm happy to share my email. It's just morgan@jotform.com, and you can reach out to me there if you have any questions.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Morgan. I'm so glad we had this conversation, and check it out, folks. Jotform, practiceoftherapy.com/Jotform. Take care. Well, a big thanks to Morgan for joining me on the podcast, and hope you've learned something from this podcast and learned about another tool that you can maybe look at and incorporate in your practice. Again, if you'll go to practiceoftherapy.com/Jotform, that'll get you to where you can check it out and find out more about Jotform. Like I said at the beginning, it's a platform that I use in the practice of therapy and also in the SiteCraft network. Just having forms that people can electronically sign, which I think is a great feature, and it's well worth the investment. I definitely get the return on the investment by using that platform. And there's so many different ways you can customize the forms and use it in so many different ways. So it's a very rich platform, and it's one of those things I can get behind. So be sure and check it out, practiceoftherapy.com/Jotform. And also, I'd love for you to go over and check out our sponsor of the podcast, Therapy Notes. They are the leading electronic health record system for mental health providers. They're who I use in my practice. Couldn't operate without them. But if you'll go over to practiceoftherapy.com/therapy notes, and when you go over there, you can try them out for 2 months for free by using the promo code, just Gordon, Gordon. They are constantly improving their platform and also just adding more and more features. It really is a turnkey kind of platform in that it provides you everything you need to run your practice on the back end, on the clinical side of things. So I just want to say that. But go and check them out, practiceoftherapy.com/therapy notes. And again, thanks for joining me in the podcast. I hope you'll take time to follow us and subscribe to the podcast wherever you might be listening to it. And I appreciate you being with me on this journey. And as I mentioned in the last episode, just how important community has become for me now, particularly with the death of my wife and just adjusting to all of those new life and a new routine and that sort of thing. And I appreciate so much those of you that reached out to me and offered your condolences. And as I said in the last episode, I'm going to have an episode just dedicated to just what it's been like for me in this journey of being a caregiver and then ultimately being on, grieving the loss of a spouse and what that's like. So anyway, not to bring it down too much on the end, thank you for joining me, and we'll be back with you next week for another episode of the Practice of Therapy podcast. You've been listening to the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer, part of the SiteCraft network of podcasts. You can find out more about the other great podcasts in the network by visiting sitecraftnetwork.com. And if you haven't done so already, please visit us at practiceoftherapy.com and get your free private practice startup guide, along with a lot of other great resources and webinars and free things just by visiting. Also, be sure to follow us wherever you might be listening to your podcasts. This podcast is intended to be educational in purpose and is not intended to give legal, accounting, or counseling advice. If you need a professional, find the right person for that.